The viewing port stretched 40 meters across. A sheet of crystalline polymer so perfectly transparent it seemed the stars themselves pressed against Kalen's fingertips. He'd been standing there for 20 minutes, watching the rotation of Meridian Station paint lazy arcs across the cosmos, when the door chimed with a sound like silver bells falling through water. "You're supposed to be in Preparation Chamber 7, said a voice behind him, musical and slightly amused. "The adjudicator is waiting." Kalen turned and tried very hard not to stare. The woman walking toward him looked human enough. 2 arms, 2 legs, the kind of face that would turn heads back on Earth. But her eyes were wrong in a way that made his brain itch. Too large, maybe, or too bright, and they shifted from blue to green as she moved through the light. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like she'd swallowed a star and it was trying to get out. "I got lost," he said, which was mostly true. The station's layout made about as much sense as a Escher painting designed by committee. "Are you the protocol adjudicator?" "I am Lyria, yes." She stopped a respectful distance away, her eyes settling on something between emerald and aquamarine. "And you are Kalen Voss, humanity's chosen champion, the one who will uphold your species' honor in the dueling accords." "That's the official version." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Unofficially, I'm the guy who pulled the short straw because everyone else in the diplomatic corps was too busy being diplomatic." Her head tilted slightly, processing the humor. "Your species sends someone who does not wish to be here." "My species has a long tradition of volunteering people for important jobs." When her expression remained politely blank, he added, "Volunteering them without asking. It's complicated. The harmonies value clarity in all communications." "Then we're off to a great start." Something flickered across her face that might have been a smile, and her eyes brightened to gold for just a moment. She gestured toward the corridor. "Come, we have little time before your first challenge. The Corvan delegation disputes your claim to the Tertius Belt mining rights." They walked through passages that curved in ways his inner ear insisted were impossible, past chambers where beings of chitin and light and crystallized thought conducted the galaxy's business through ritual and ceremony. Everything here operated on rules Kalen didn't understand, governed by traditions older than human civilization. "So how does this work?" he asked. "The ritual combat thing. Do I need a sword? Should I have brought a sword?" "The Accords provide all necessary implements. You will enter the arena, face your opponent, and engage in stylized combat until one party yields or is rendered unable to continue." "When you say unable to continue, no one has died in a sanctioned duel for 9,000 cycles." Her eyes flickered violet, which he was learning meant something like concern. Death would be a catastrophic failure of form. "Right. Form got it, he didn't got it, and after someone yields. The dispute is resolved. The victor's claim is honored. Both parties share ceremonial drink and speak the words of continued harmony. That's it. No appeals, no lawyers, no 3-year court battle. Why would anyone wish to extend conflict beyond its necessary resolution?" Kalen thought about explaining the human legal system and decided against it. They'd been in space for less than a century. No need to get kicked out before lunch. They reached Preparation Chamber 7, which turned out to be a spherical room containing a floating meditation platform, various pieces of equipment Kalen couldn't identify, and what looked disturbingly like a very comfortable psychiatrist's couch. "You will center yourself here," Lyria said, gesturing to the meditation sphere. "Clear your mind of aggression and intention. The Accords require purity of." Kalen sat down on the sphere. It immediately began spinning, dumping him onto the floor with a dignity-destroying thump. The silence that followed was profound. "That," Lyria said slowly, her eyes cycling rapidly through colors he had no names for, "is the sacred contemplation apparatus of the arena masters. Only the designated champion may activate it through proper mental preparation." "Ah," Kalen stood, brushing off his uniform. "Should I have known that? The knowledge is considered foundational to all civilized beings." Humanity's been civilized for maybe 6,000 years, depending on who you ask. We're still working out the basics. Her eyes settled on Amber, held there for 3 long seconds, and then she laughed. It was a small sound, almost surprised, like she'd forgotten how. Perhaps, she said, and now there was definitely warmth in her voice, your species will bring interesting perspectives to the harmonies. That's one word for it, Kalen muttered, eyeing the meditation sphere with deep suspicion. What's the word for complete disaster? In my language, we have 17, each describing different nuances of catastrophic failure. Of course you do. Her eyes flashed gold again as she showed him to the actual preparation area, and Kalen decided that maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be a complete disaster after all. Kalen had won 3 ritual combats in 2 weeks, which apparently made him either very skilled or very lucky, depending on which delegation you asked. The Korvan had yielded after 40 seconds of what they called fighting, and what Kalen called aggressive interpretive dance. The Viren representative had actually apologized mid-duel for inconveniencing him. The third opponent, whose name contained sounds human vocal cords couldn't produce, had simply looked into Kalen's eyes and forfeited immediately. You're making them nervous, Lyria said over breakfast in the commissary. If breakfast was the right word for the luminescent paste the food synthesizers insisted was nutritionally optimal. Her eyes were pale blue, which he'd learned meant she was relaxed. I'm just doing what you taught me. Follow the forms, respect the patterns, don't actually hurt anyone. Yes, but you move like, she paused, searching for words. Like violence is your first language and diplomacy, is something you learned from a phrase book. Accurate, Kalen poked at his paste. What's this supposed to taste like? Contentment with a hint of morning optimism. It tastes like someone melted a candle into oatmeal. Your species has very specific requirements for food pleasure. Her eyes shifted to Amber. The harmonies evolved past such dependencies millennia ago. My condolences. Before she could respond, the commissary's ambient lighting shifted to deep violet, and a harmonic tone resonated through the walls. Every being in the room stopped what they were doing. Lyria's eyes flashed to crimson. What's wrong? Kalen asked. The Sovereign Ascendant has issued a direct summons. For you. She stood quickly. This is unprecedented. The Sovereign hasn't personally requested an audience with a new species representative in 3,000 cycles. Is that good unprecedented or bad unprecedented? I don't know. They made their way through the station to a docking bay Kalen had never seen before, where a vessel waited that looked less like a ship and more like a crystal cathedral grown from mathematics and light. The boarding ramp felt solid under his feet but appeared to be made from nothing at all. Inside, the walls hummed with data streams visible to the naked eye, rivers of information flowing through translucent surfaces. Lyria walked beside him, her eyes locked on Violet, not saying anything. You're worried, he said. The Sovereign is the oldest living consciousness in the harmonies. It existed before my species developed language, before most species developed eyes. Comforting. They entered a chamber that seemed to contain the entire galaxy in miniature. Stars and nebulae swirling in holographic suspension around a central dais where something waited. Not a creature exactly, more like the idea of presence given form through crystalline lattices and harmonic resonance. A voice spoke through Lyria, using her mouth but not her tone. Kalen Voss of humanity. We wish to understand your kind before rendering judgment on your petition to join the assembled harmonies. I'm happy to answer questions, Kalen said, trying not to think about how deeply weird it was to hear an ancient alien consciousness using Lyria as a speaker system. Questions would be inefficient. We request access to your species' historical archives, specifically records of conflicts and their resolutions. This is standard procedure for all applicants. Kalen glanced at Lyria, whose own eyes had gone gray behind the Sovereign's control. Sure, I can authorize that. though I should mention our record-keeping got spotty before the 21st century. Acceptable. We will extrapolate from available data. The presence released Lyria, who gasped and staggered. Kaelin caught her elbow. Her eyes cycled rapidly through colors before settling on gold. That was extremely uncomfortable, she said. Looked it. You okay? The Sovereign rarely manifests directly anymore. It prefers processing information in isolation. She straightened, regaining her composure. This will take several hours. I should show you the historical archives. You might find them interesting. The ship's archive chamber contained the complete conflict history of 17 species across 11,000 cycles. Lyria brought up holographic displays showing each recorded dispute, the ritual combat that resolved it, and the ceremonial reconciliation that followed. 37 conflicts, she said, total across all member species for 11 millennia. Kaelin stared at the number, 37 in 11,000 years. The Harmonies are proud of this achievement. Most species undergo neural reformation or genetic modification to reduce aggressive tendencies before joining. It's considered a basic requirement for civilized society. Humans didn't get that memo. Your species is quite young, perhaps in time. A sound like crystal shattering echoed through the ship. The data streams in the walls stuttered, flickered, died. Lyria's eyes went pure white. Something's wrong, she whispered. They ran back to the central chamber. The Sovereign's presence was flickering, its crystalline form resonating at frequencies that made Kaelin's teeth ache. Lyria gasped and grabbed a console, her hands shaking as she pulled up data. The processors have stopped. The archive system is overloaded. It's trying to catalog. She stopped, her eyes cycling through red, black, red again. This can't be right. What is it? She turned to him, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked genuinely afraid. How many wars has your species fought? I don't know the exact number. Hundreds. Thousands maybe if you count everything. The system has cataloged 14,387 distinct armed conflicts. Her voice was barely a whisper. 14,000, and it hasn't finished processing yet. The Sovereign's presence collapsed inward, withdrawing so fast it left silence like a wound in the air. What's happening? Kaelin demanded. Contemplative suspension. The Sovereign has encountered information that threatens its consciousness integrity. Lyria looked at him with eyes gone dark as void. Kaelin, what are you? The Emergency Council convened in a chamber that smelled like ozone and fear. Entanglement. Kaelin sat in what he desperately hoped was a chair and not something sacred ancestor, while representatives from 17 species tried to process what the archive had found. 14,000 conflicts, the Virin delegate said through her translator, her amphibious body rippling with distress. We resolved our single war through interpretive dance. It took 3 generations to perfect the choreography, but we did it. Once. The statistical analysis is clear. Clicked the Calthrine representative, their insected mandibles working rapidly. Humanity has waged war using every recorded justification and its direct philosophical opposite. They fought for resources. They fought to redistribute resources. They fought for gods. They fought to disprove gods. They fought for peace. That last one needs context, Kaelin offered weakly. Does it? The Calthrine's compound eyes fixed on him. You have 17 documented conflicts specifically named the war to end all wars. 17. The mathematical improbability of repeating that mistake suggests it may not be a mistake at all. Lyria stood near the back of the chamber, her eyes stuck on deep red, saying nothing. She hadn't spoken to him since they'd left the Sovereign's vessel 6 hours ago. Perhaps we should examine the specific triggers, suggested a Thalmir representative, their gaseous form contained in an elegant pressure suit. Surely there are patterns we can identify, warning signs we can monitor. The holographic display activated, flooding the chamber with data. Wars for territory, religion, ideology, succession, insult, prevention, liberation, unification, separation, and a category simply labeled miscellaneous that contained 43 entries. You fought a war over a bucket, the VRIN delegate said, her voice rising to a frequency that made the translators whine. An actual bucket, for 300 years. The War of the Oaken Bucket was more about municipal pride than Kalen stopped. Okay, that one's hard to defend. You fought yourselves, the Calthrine continued, pulling up more data. Civil wars, revolutions, coups. You split into factions and fought over how to stop fighting. You created weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering, then created laws prohibiting those weapons, then created new weapons that technically didn't violate the laws. We're very creative problem solvers. Nobody laughed. Lyria's eyes flickered to black for just a moment. The Thalmir delegate's suit changed colors, indicating deep confusion. You have literature. Thousands of texts about peace, harmony, cooperation. Your philosophers spent centuries arguing for nonviolence. Your religions preached love and compassion. And yet, Kalen agreed quietly, how do you live with this? The question came from Lyria, finally speaking. Everyone turned to look at her. How does your species function knowing what you are, what you've done? Kalen stood up and the chamber went silent. We remember. Every war, every mistake, every time we swore never again and did it anyway. We build monuments to the dead and teach our children what happened. We carry it. That sounds like torture. Sometimes it is. He looked around the chamber at beings who had evolved past violence, modified themselves into peace, edited aggression from their very biology. But we can't cut it out like you did. It's too deep, so we learn to live with it. We make jokes about it because the alternative is screaming. Jokes, the Calthrine repeated flatly. Gallows humor. We laugh at horror because we're standing on the gallows and the rope's already around our neck. It's either laugh or go insane. The VRIN delegate made a sound like water trying to sob. This species cannot join the harmonies. They are dangerous, fundamentally, catastrophically dangerous. Agreed, said the Calthrine. The risk assessment is clear. Kalen should have argued, should have defended humanity, made the case for their potential, their progress. Instead he said, you're probably right. Lyria's eyes flashed gold for just a second before returning to red. She pushed through the crowd to stand beside him. The sovereign has not ruled yet. The sovereign is catatonic because it looked at our history and had the cosmic equivalent of a panic attack. Contemplative suspension, it's different. Is it though? She opened her mouth, closed it, and her eyes shifted through 6 colors in as many seconds. I accessed your literature archives, your poetry. You have poets who wrote about peace while serving in armies. Soldiers who planted gardens between battles. You built hospitals next to weapons factories. You created rules for war, rules, as if violence could be civilized. It can't, Kalen said, but we try anyway, we always try. That's the part I don't understand. Her eyes finally settled on something between amber and gold. You know what you are and you try to be better anyway, even though you fail, even though you'll probably fail again. Welcome to being human. It's exhausting. The sovereign will wake, she said, and there was something new in her voice. Not quite hope, but not despair either. When it does, it will render judgment. The council dissolved into arguments and statistical analyses and xenopsychological debates that would probably continue for weeks. Kalen and Lyria left together, walking through corridors that felt different now, heavier somehow. For what it's worth, she said as they reached the observation deck where they'd first met, I think you're terrifying. Thanks, but also fascinating, like watching a star about to go supernova. Beautiful and dangerous and impossible to look away from. You really know how to make a guy feel special. Her eyes flashed pure gold and she laughed, actually laughed, the sound echoing off the crystal walls. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled through the dark, indifferent to the anxieties of civilizations young and old. The sovereign emerged from contemplative suspension on the third cycle, and the entire station felt it like pressure equalizing after a storm. Kaelin was attempting to teach Lyria the concept of coffee when the summons came, her eyes cycling through confused orange as she tried to understand why humans would voluntarily drink something that tasted like burned dirt. It's an acquired taste, he explained for the fourth time. So is suffering, but we don't drink it. The council chamber was packed. Every delegation had sent their full complement, and the air thrummed with translated anxiety. The sovereign's presence materialized slowly, coalescing from light and mathematics into something approaching form. When it spoke, it didn't use Lyria this time. Every being in the chamber heard it in their own way, through whatever sense they used to perceive meaning. We have completed our analysis of humanity. The silence that followed could have collapsed into a singularity. Your species has waged 14,387 documented conflicts across your recorded history. This number paralyzed our consciousness not through its magnitude alone, but through its implications. The sovereign's presence pulsed, and data flooded the chamber's displays. Concurrent with these conflicts, humanity generated 50,000 documented peace treaties, ceasefires, armistices, and reconciliation agreements. Kaelin blinked. He'd expected judgment, condemnation, maybe a polite escort to the edge of known space. He had not expected math. For every war you fought, you attempted peace 3 times. Your literature contains more words about peace than violence. Your laws limiting warfare are more extensive than your strategies for waging it. You created elaborate rules to minimize suffering even while perfecting the tools of destruction. The sovereign's form shifted, and something that might have been wonder entered its harmonic resonance. You are a paradox, a species simultaneously addicted to and repelled by violence, forever at war with your own nature. That's us, Kaelin said. We contain multitudes, mostly contradictory ones. The Virin delegate made her water-sobbing sound. This does not resolve the danger they pose. No, the sovereign agreed, it does not. Humanity will never evolve past violence. They lack the neural architecture for reformation. Their aggression is woven too deeply into their survival mechanisms. Lyria's eyes went gray. Kaelin felt his chest tighten. However, the sovereign continued, and the chamber's lighting shifted to something warmer. In 11,000 cycles, the harmonies have never needed to consider a specific scenario. What happens when ritual combat fails? When diplomacy cannot prevent genuine external threat? When violence becomes not a choice but a necessity? That's impossible, the Calthrine clicked. The Accords prevent all conflict. They prevent all internal conflict. The galaxy is large. We have been fortunate. Fortune is not strategy. The sovereign's presence expanded, filling the chamber. Humanity has spent their entire existence learning what we pray we never need to know. How to channel violence, how to control it, how to direct it toward purpose while maintaining enough civilization to remember why they fight. The council erupted. Arguments in 17 languages filled the air, translators struggling to keep pace. You're proposing we weaponize them, the Virin delegate said, horror bleeding through the translation. We propose they serve as what they have always been, warriors who dream of peace, soldiers who plant gardens. The sovereign turned its attention to Kaelin, and he felt the weight of 11,000 years of consciousness examining him. Humanity is granted provisional membership in the assembled harmonies with the following conditions. You will serve as our failsafe, our final option. You will learn our diplomatic arts while we learn your strategic ones. You will be the shield we hope never to use. You want us as galactic security guards, Kaelin said slowly. We want you as the thing that stands between civilization and the dark. It is what you have always been for each other. Lyria moved through the crowd to stand beside him, her eyes bright gold. I vote to accept this proposal. Of course you do, muttered the Calthrine. You've been reading their poetry. I have. It's beautiful and terrible like them. The vote took 3 hours. When it finished, humanity had a place in the harmonies by a margin of exactly 1 vote. The Thalmir delegate had apparently developed what they called morbid curiosity about whether humans could actually deliver on the sovereign's theory. "Welcome to the harmonies," Lyria said afterward, her eyes cycling through colors too fast to track. "Try not to start any wars. Can't promise anything, but we'll give peace a shot. At least 3 times per conflict, apparently." They walked to the ritual arena, empty now in the station's night cycle. Lyria wanted to understand how humans trained for combat, what made them move the way they did. Kaelin tried to show her basic defensive stances, but she kept overthinking it, her body not quite remembering how to hold violence even playfully. "You're terrible at this," he said after she'd stumbled for the 5th time. "My species removed the neural pathways for combat 8,000 cycles ago. And now you're stuck with humanity, who kept all our pathways and added new ones." "Yes." She managed a basic guard position, her eyes settling into steady gold. "Kaelin, why do you think we'll survive this, having your species among us?" "Honestly, no idea. We might burn down everything you've built." He adjusted her stance and she didn't flinch at the contact. "But we might also protect it. We've had a lot of practice being both." "That's not reassuring." "Welcome to humanity. We're not big on reassurance. But we're excellent at survival." She laughed then, the sound echoing through the ancient arena where countless ritualized conflicts had been resolved without bloodshed. Tomorrow, Kaelin would begin teaching combat doctrine to species who'd forgotten what violence looked like. Next week, humanity's first diplomatic ship would arrive, full of soldiers and poets, warriors and gardeners, beings who carried both weapons and peace treaties and couldn't quite figure out which one they believed in more. "I accessed more of your archives," Lyria said quietly. "You have a saying, 'If you want peace, prepare for war.' We have another one too. 'They shall beat their swords into plowshares.' We contain multitudes, remember." Her eyes flashed gold one more time, bright as hope, dangerous as starlight. Outside the arena, the galaxy turned through the dark, and somewhere in the infinite black, humanity's children were coming home to a place they'd never been, carrying 11,000 years of conflict in one hand and the desperate dream of peace in the other. "Teach me to fight," Lyria said. "Why?" "Because someone should understand you, really understand you, even if it's uncomfortable." So he did, there in the arena where bloodless combat had maintained harmony for millennia, teaching an alien woman with golden eyes and luminescent skin how to throw a punch she would hopefully never need to use, while she taught him the 17 words her language had for catastrophic failure, and the single word they had for hope despite impossibility. The words sounded like laughter,